Hey, we're back for a second discussion about books here with the Book Love Summer Book Club. Thinking about elementary classrooms or any classroom if you like these kind of books. Happy to be here with Cindy and Kim. Again, we've got the educators here from that range of ages. Today, we're going to be talking about classroom values and how books we love to use at the beginning of the school year that promote those classroom values and culture. And I'm going to throw things over to Cindy to start us off.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. So, the first book that I'm going to talk about is a new one that I just found this year. Actually, I think it just came out this year. It's called One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam, I hope I'm saying that right, story. It's by Ruth Spiro. And those words are actually Hebrew words. It's from the Jewish philosophy that when you translate it, it means to repair the world. And what I loved about this book is it's a young girl that's like going on her morning walk to school and she finds a problem in her community that she decides she wants to solve. And as she begins to solve this problem, other people in her community join her and it becomes a whole community that solves this problem. And so, what I love about that, and one of the primary values that I really want to help bring out in my kids is their sense of agency and self efficacy and this understanding that their voice matters and I want them to feel empowered to use their voice. I don't know about you guys, but I see in so many districts and schools their mission statements that say we're teaching kids, and part of why they're getting an education, right, is to become productive citizens. But I feel like so much of what we do in school and how we show we value citizenship in school doesn't lead that self necessarily out into the real world. So this is like a really important skill for me. I love this book. It's a great story to really help tell kids you see things that we might not see and you can change the world and your voice matters. You're not too young to use that voice. So it's one of my favorite books already and I just like came across it and I just love this story.
That's so cool, Cindy. I like how that throws, kind of cast that vision for kids for what could be, and so
Yeah.
you talked about like our school, like how do we bring our school mission statement or even our classroom mission statement to a very specific level? Like, here's one way we can live out,
Yeah.
this is bigger than just reading and writing. And
And we don't do it for a grade, right? We do to learn about ourselves and learn about the world that we live in. So this just really brings that to light. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And it's so important because quite often kids, when they come to schools, especially the school I work at, is not very diverse. So when
Hmm.
you have children coming in with home literacies that are different from the majority of the students in the classroom, quite often they have that feeling of that they really don't belong, they really don't matter, or they really aren't enough, which segues nicely into the book that I have today, which is Grace Byers' book, I Am Enough. And this book, the illustrations are very simple, like the white background with these gorgeous but simple illustrations. So they're really highlighted focus points. But there's one page that always make the children stop and really dig in when I read this book. And it says, I'm not meant to be like you. You're not meant to be like me. Sometimes we will get along and sometimes we will disagree. So the
Love that.
root of value systems is that we need to hold space for multiple points of view, multiple home literacies, and that willingness to be accepting, even if we don't fully understand, which is often the root of disagreement, is that we just don't understand. So if we can hold that space and have those conversations and realize that really it's okay if we don't agree on everything. It's okay if you like something I don't, or you believe something I don't. That's okay. What isn't okay is when I make you feel badly about it, or I make you feel less than about it. So books like I Am Enough and the Christian Robinson's book, You Matter, really draw on that in very simple, honest, clear ways that hold intensively deep messages beneath those simple words.
I
So,
love
yeah.
that. And as a middle elementary teacher, and I could say thank you to the K1 teachers who are teaching kids those. And then
Yes.
when we do a reread of that book in second or third grade, that seed has been planted. So I love that. It is really powerful to the culture we build.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk here about this book called Ralph Tells a Story by Abby Hanlon. In the background of the classroom, something she does that's really cute are book covers from other popular books. Ralph Tells a Story is a story of a classroom learning how to do like a writer's workshop. So early on, I'm going to try to hold this up. This is when Ralph is saying, I have no story, I can't write. But if you can see in the background, we have like Frog and Toad, and we have
Oh,
these other
fun.
book covers. So it's neat for the kids to see their favorite characters. Madeline, George is back there. Pigeon is on the wall. David, everybody loves the David books. But it starts off, he says, my teacher always said stories are everywhere. And then, they launch into this time like, hey guys, we're going to write, and then we're going to come to the carpet and we're going to share. And I love that because I'm trying to build a culture in the classroom where we're all going to contribute. We're all going to share. Like we are all doing this together. And as Ralph struggles to come up with a story, one of his classmates is like, Ralphie, like I've written lots of stories. He said, nothing ever happens to me. And she's like, I've written lots of stories about you. Like stuff happens to you all the time. He's like, what do you mean? And so he struggles through and he writes this, very like K1 kind of story. Like and that the aged kids, it's not really said, but you get the idea from kind of their work samples. And then at the end, he gets up and shares. And I love what happens when I read this book because the kids are very interested in Ralph and the story he ends up writing. He ends up sort of retelling about this exciting thing that happened to him at the park, which was really just like he saw a worm and a baby almost squished it. But the way it's told is really funny. And then what happens when I read this book is it sets the stage. And then invariably somebody says, well, we have notebooks. We should do that. And so then I can let it be their idea. Oh, well, that's, I tell you what, we could make 10 minutes today. Do you guys think you want to write some stories and maybe some of you would want to share them? And they like, yeah, really? Like, I'm like, oh, I guess we can make time for that. And it totally like tricks them into the lesson plan of one
Yeah.
of our first writing lessons of the year. But, it just builds that culture of sharing and valuing and helping each other. And I love the role of the teacher in the book because she's kind of flipping the switch. She's starting things off, but then she's giving the kids some room to work. And that is something I value in my classroom culture
Yeah.
is that it's going to be
Yeah.
messy but
Yeah.
it's not all about me. It's the work. Whoever's doing the talking is doing the work. And so we're going to be talking and writing and sharing our thoughts. So love that book by Abby Hanlon. Ralph
I
Tells Us.
love that little masterful manipulation
Yeah.
them to come up with this brilliant idea of writing. Gasp! Who would have
It's,
thought of that in a
it's,
literacy classroom?
it's like a Jedi mind trick. So yeah,
Love it.
Love it.
that's
Love
so
it.
fun. Well, we do have some time, so I don't know. We've talked about doing this. It's just a lightning round of just throwing books out. Maybe I will
Can I add
say,
one thing to that, Tim, before
oh,
we
please.
start our
Yeah,
lightning
do it.
round? Another thing that I really try to consider, and it's hard, like it was hard for us to do this, I think, as we're trying to back and forth our ideas. But I do pull out probably 10 to 15 books that I love that I want to start the year with. But
Yeah.
I also look at that pile because another message, and we kind of alluded to it already, but I think that it's really important to say that this is like a very deliberate thing. I look at my pile and I think, have I showed my kids that we have an inclusive classroom?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
started using that word over diverse based on a session I saw through Illinois Reading Council with Chad Everett one year. And he talked about how we use the word diversity, but diversity still implies diverse from what? Like it still centers whiteness. And so I've shifted my language to more inclusive.
I
I want to
love
create
that.
an inclusive environment. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily explicitly say it, but I show it by making sure that there's somebody like my kids can see themselves in a book somewhere within that first 2 to 3 weeks. And so it's really good to be intentional about that in your first couple weeks because that says a lot to your kids.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I really, really benefited from when I received the Book Club grant a few years back,
Mm.
is that there were lists of inclusive books that we could select from that you can't always, well, at that point in time, you couldn't really always get access to. And it considered not just the titles and what was portrayed in the pages, but who was actually writing the books.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
Tim, you were talking about the Netflix and YouTube connection for bookmarks. Did you say it was? I think it
Yeah,
was.
we just talked about that before we started. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the bookmark
And with
series.
the authors reading their own books,
Mhm.
and then the kids saying, wait a minute, I look like that author. So it takes
Yes.
them past the pages of the book into the writing studio of whoever is creating the book, and really thinking, not only do I see myself in the book, but I actually see myself writing that book or sharing that story. And it gives a whole new level to those connections and values and identities that, well, the three of us, we look through a white lens. So we do the best we can do, but
Mhm.
it draws in those other lenses. So those kids feel beyond just the pages of the book, that
Yeah.
they truly are included in the classroom and in the world, and what they say
Mhm.
and do does matter and make a difference. So I love that, Cindy. Thank you for sharing that shift in
Yeah.
language. It's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
It's a great, I mean, yeah, and I do a very similar thing.
And
One
it's
thing I
even more important if you're in a less diverse classroom. I think
Absolutely.
sometimes then the teachers might think if they teach in a school, like Kim said, that doesn't have a lot of, different backgrounds, like
100%.
it's even more important that we like expose them to those different backgrounds and not the opposite is true. So that's a really important thing to consider as well.
think of is where kids live.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing we talk about in the elementary classroom, I'm sure you guys have had these discussions, is we read a book like Evelyn Del Rey is Moving Away, and it's about two little girls who are best friends, and they both live in apartments. Their apartments are in the same complex. Their apartments are like mirror images of each other, and there's always kids who are like, "Oh, like I've always wanted to live in. I've never been in an apartment." But in my community here, we do have a mix of housing, so it's assumed that maybe the kids all live in houses. Somebody will be like, "Oh, I live in an apartment," or "My dad lives in an apartment, but I live with
Mhm.
my mom in a house." So we talk about classroom values. Diamond Daniel is one of those books that is she moves to a new school, or no, there's a new kid. It's a terrible book talk. Sorry. There's a new kid in her school, and he's not fitting in. And anyway, they build bridges, and it's like looking out. You can hit those values, like looking out for kids who don't fit in. You see like how kids are maybe off by themselves and how you include them. And so one of our values I always try to include is that, hey, we're includers in this classroom
Yeah.
because we're going to
Yes.
have to do a lot of work together. We don't all have to be best friends, but we're going to be includers. We're going to always try to make the circle bigger to include others. And so anytime I can read a book where a character they really like does that, I love that. And Nikki Grimes' book, Diamond Daniel, really does that.
Really does that. Yeah. Yeah.
If you guys
Yeah,
feel
we could
free
do a
to,
few more lightning rounds. Like I've
we can do a little
noticed
lightning
too.
round.
I was gonna suggest I Have Every Good Thing by Derek Barnes because I
So good.
noticed
Yeah.
a lot of the books that we were reading had predominantly female protagonists and love Derek Barnes. Any of his books are phenomenal, but it's fun because they can write like a poem off of it. Like it gives them another writing. I can segue that into some writing. But I Am Every Good Thing by Derek Barnes and
So good.
the male protagonist in that story and how do you feel good about yourself. So that's one that I love.
I
Yeah.
love all of Matt Delapena's picture books.
Yes.
Yes.
So you get a
Yes.
variety of characters and situations, but we actually had Matt as part of a recent book club, and we got to
Yeah.
chat with him about it as well. But
Yeah.
all of his books, beginning of the
Yeah.
school year,
There's
Fabulous.
so much in his
if the power
books.
goes out, just grab one of Matt's books.
Yep.
Like this is what we're doing till the power comes back on,
Yep.
guys.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Two that I really love early in the year, I find with with teaching kindergarten grade 1, they really don't have a filter. So when there's something that they are unsure of or don't know about or what have you, they're very quick to say like, oh, that's gross, or oh, I don't like that, or what have you. So two that I really like are Layla's Lunchbox, which is a
Yes.
Ramadan story by Reem Farakhi and Lee Lyon. I think I have that correct. I'm very sorry if I don't. And the other one is called The Sandwich Swap, and it's by Kelly DiPuccio and Trisha Tusa. And they're both about, well, lunches. So in Layla's, she's not eating because she's fasting for Ramadan. So there's discussion around why she's fasting and why that's important. And she's very embarrassed about it at first, or no, not really embarrassed, like timid, doesn't want to share out what she's doing and why, and then how she works through that with some people that she trusts and that really see her. And in the sandwich swap, it's about two children who bring very different lunches. So one lunch has lots of variety and choice and foods like Far Eastern foods that the children in the local school had not seen or smelled before. So it's these two little girls like sort of eyeing each other's lunches and saying like, "Ooh, I don't, that's kind of gross." They're both thinking it, and then how they end up trading and getting to experience both and discovering that they like them. And what I've been able to do with that is I have some parents that have also come into our classroom
Oh,
to
fun.
talk about these lunches and bring samples of some of these foods that are
Awesome.
shared in the lunches. So the kids have the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to try them and whether or not they like them. And it's really interesting and exciting. And I've discovered some foods that I would not have tried on my own that I
Yeah.
just love.
Yeah.
So one of the moms brings me the stuff regularly because she knows that I love it. So
Yeah, I've done that with a couple of parents too. I was gonna say another author that you can't go wrong with, especially if you're building classroom values, is Peter Reynolds. Like, he's got a
yes,
whole series of, the North Star, I'm courageous, be you. Like,
yeah,
you can't go wrong with Peter Reynolds. If you need a book on building values, grab one of his off the shelf and like you're gold. He's another one of my
absolutely,
go-tos if I need that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we do need those. We need
Yeah.
those books and those authors. I don't have a copy of this. I've actually used the YouTube read aloud of it, which I should probably just get a copy of it. I should get a copy of it. I'm saying here, I'll just get a copy of it. But the book is called Decibella, and it is totally like a classroom behavior book. It is about this little girl who is named Isabella, but everybody calls her Decibella because she's so loud.
Oh,
And so then it tells the story of, it's a picture book, and the
yeah.
teacher's like, Decibella, you have a voice, but you need to use it different ways. And then the teacher
I love
teaches
that.
Decibella the 5 different levels of her voice. And there comes a point in every year, I don't, another coworker mentioned it to me. I don't even remember for sure which teacher. I was like, the kids are so loud all the time. Like, we only have one volume. She's like, you just need to read Decibella. Like, it's another one of those books where the lesson is just in a story. And again, eh, it's not a moving book. It's funny. It's told in a funny way, but it
Yeah.
teaches that little lesson. And then you can write those volume levels up on the board, whatever age kids you have, and be like, okay, so you're using your outside voice, and or you're using your strong speaker voice, and you're not giving a presentation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we should, and it's something we can always come back.
Love
So
that.
also committing to just buy the book and not use, I don't know if the YouTube book is
I put it on
illustrated
my list. I
by
just
the
yes.
author.
Love
So
it.
my public confession. Well, this is great. So I know
Yeah,
we're going to have one more discussion about books,
yeah.
and I'm just inspired and encouraged to chat with teachers about books. It makes us
Beautiful.
think, and the listeners don't know this, but before we started, we had to narrow it down to what books would be pictured on the banner for the book club, and we did it like a fantasy football draft. And just like I've played some fantasy sports, just like my fantasy football team, I was like, I can't believe I picked that book because that meant I left this other book
How I
Yes.
know this
out.
is
And
so
we all had
hard.
different reasons, and for the books we chose. But
Yep.
I'm glad
Yeah.
we're working extra, but we're just including all of them in the discussions. So,
Yep.
all right, guys. Well, thanks so much, and until next time.
Yep.
Yes. Thanks, Tim. See you, Cindy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.